Have you ever looked at someone like Erling Haaland and thought, well, of course he's successful. Look at him. He's 6'4", unbelievably fast, incredibly strong. He just won the genetic lottery. It's an easy conclusion to make. And it's also the reason most people never become exceptional. Because the moment you convince yourself that someone else's success was predetermined, you've given yourself permission to stop asking a much more important question. What if greatness isn't built on talent alone? Every year, thousands of footballers dream of becoming the next global superstar. They train hard, they sacrifice weekends, they wake up early. Many of them are gifted athletes with incredible speed, strength, and technical ability. Yet, only a handful ever reach the highest level. And then there's Erling Haaland, a player who doesn't just score goals, he breaks records. He dominates defenders who have spent their entire lives preparing for moments like these. So what makes him different? Is it really just genetics? Or is there something happening long before he ever steps onto a football pitch? Because here's what most people never see. They see the 90 minutes. They don't see the other 23 hours. According to interviews and reports, Haaland doesn't think like someone who plays football. He thinks like someone whose entire life is built around performance. Every decision, from how he sleeps and eats to how he recovers and trains, is made with one question in mind. Will this make me better? He once described this mindset perfectly. You need to be a 24/7 athlete, not just 2 hours of the game. Read that again. Not a 2-hour athlete, a 24 hours athlete. That single sentence explains almost everything about his success, because while most people separate their goals from their lifestyle, Holland doesn't. His lifestyle is his goal, and that's exactly what we're going to break down today. Not just his workouts, not just his diet, but the invisible system that turned one of football's most talented players into one of the most dominant athletes in the world. Because by the end of this video, you'll realize something surprising. You don't need Manchester City's facilities. You don't need a personal chef. You don't need elite genetics. But you do need to think differently. There's a misconception that success is built during moments of intensity. The workout, the meeting, the match, the exam, those moments matter, but they're only the final performance. The real work happens everywhere else. Holland understands something that most people never do. Performance isn't an event. It's the result of thousands of invisible decisions. When he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't immediately reach for his phone. Instead, reports describe him starting his day by going outside, exposing himself to natural sunlight before breakfast. It sounds incredibly simple, almost too simple to matter. But morning sunlight helps regulate your body's internal clock, improving alertness during the day and supporting better sleep at night. That's the first thing you'll notice about Holland. Nothing is random. Every habit has a purpose, and those purposes begin stacking on top of one another. One better decision, then another, then another. Most people spend their mornings reacting, checking notifications, scrolling through social media, answering messages. By the time they begin working, their attention already belongs somewhere else. Holland's mornings sends a completely different message. My body comes first. Not because he's obsessed with routines for the sake of routines, but because every small habit is an investment in the next training session. This philosophy continues throughout the day. Training, recovery, nutrition, sleep, nothing exists in isolation. Everything supports everything else. And that's a lesson most of us completely overlook. We tend to think discipline is about forcing ourselves to do difficult things. But for elite performers, discipline is often about removing unnecessary decisions altogether. If your routine already answers the question, what am I eating today? When am I training? When am I sleeping? Then your brain wastes far less energy deciding. Consistency becomes easier because the decision has already been made. This is why Holland's life appears almost repetitive. To the average person, it might seem boring. The same habits, the same foods, the same schedule, but that's exactly the point. Elite performance isn't built on constant excitement, it's built on consistency. The exciting part is the result. Process rarely is. Imagine owning a Formula One car. Would you fill it with the cheapest fuel you could find? Probably not. You'd protect it, maintain it, fuel it with exactly what it needs. Now ask yourself a different question. Why don't we treat our bodies the same way? Most people eat according to mood, cravings, convenience, entertainment. Holland eats according to performance. Reports estimate he consumes around 6,000 calories a day. But here's where many headlines becomes misleading. People hear 6,000 calories and immediately imagine endless cheat meals or junk food. The reality is almost the opposite. His diet is built around whole, nutrient-dense food. Steaks, eggs, chicken, fish, vegetables, potatoes, fruits, healthy fats, even organ meats like liver and heart. Chosen because they're incredibly rich in vitamins and minerals. His father worked alongside nutrition professionals to help him build this approach, and Manchester City's nutrition philosophy emphasizes food first, using any basic supplements like vitamin D, omega-3, and probiotics where appropriate. Notice something important. There isn't anything magical here. No secret superfood, no miracle supplement, no expensive powder promising instant results. Just high-quality food eaten consistently. Even his breakfast reflects this mindset. Coffee mixed with milk and maple syrup, eggs, sourdough bread. Simple and nutritious. One of the most interesting details from the research is that Holland said he loves food. He isn't forcing himself to eat healthy because he hates eating. He genuinely enjoys it. But the food he enjoys also happen to support his goals. That's a powerful distinction because discipline doesn't always mean denying yourself. Sometimes it means teaching yourself to enjoy the things that move you closer to the person you want to become. There's another lesson hidden here. Most people ask, what do I feel like eating? Elite performers ask, what does my body need today? Those are two completely different questions. One is driven by impulse, the other is intention. Now, before you think you need to eat 6,000 calories to improve your life, that's not the lesson. In fact, for most people, copying Holland's calorie intake would be unhealthy. The lesson isn't the number, it's the mindset behind the number. Food isn't just something that fills your stomach, it's information. Every meal tells your body what you're asking it to become. And Holland has spent years making sure every plate sends the same message. Build me stronger. Because when every decision points towards one goal, your results eventually have no choice but to follow. If I asked you what separates elite athletes from everyone else, most people would probably answer with one word: training. More hours, more effort, more discipline. And while those things matter, they're not what surprised me most about Erling Haaland. The more I researched him, the more I realized that he doesn't just train like a professional, he recovers like one. In fact, Haaland has built an entire lifestyle around one belief. Recovery isn't the reward for hard work. Recovery is part of the work. That's a mindset most of us completely miss. We admire people who work until midnight. We praise those who skip sleep to grind. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. Elite performers don't do that because they understand something science has known for years. Your muscles don't grow while you're lifting weights. They grow after you've stopped. Training creates stress. Recovery creates adaptation. Without recovery, you're simply accumulating fatigue. That's why Holland treats recovery with the same seriousness as training itself. According to reports, after intense session, he regularly alternates between ice baths and sauna sessions, often 4 to 5 times a week, to reduce muscle soreness, improve circulation, and prepare his body for the next day's training. He even invested in a personal cryotherapy chamber at home, allowing him to expose his body to extremely cold temperatures as another recovery tool. Now let's be clear. The cryotherapy chamber isn't what made Erling Haaland one of the world's best footballers. If you believe buying expensive recovery gadgets will suddenly transform your life, you've completely missed the point. The equipment is just a tool. The philosophy is what matters, because whether it's an ice bath, 10-minute stretching session, or simply getting enough sleep, the goal is always the same. Show up tomorrow in a better condition than you showed up today. And that's what most people fail to do. They keep asking, how can I work harder? Instead of asking, how can I recover better? One of the biggest reasons Holland stays available throughout a demanding football season is because he doesn't wait until something hurts before taking care of his body. Recovery is proactive, not reactive. Reports show he works consistently with physiotherapists, receiving manual therapy and deep stretching sessions that focus especially on his hips and groin. Early in his career, flexibility was actually considered one of his weaknesses. Rather than ignoring it, he spent years improving his mobility until it became one of his greatest strengths. Today, stretching isn't optional. Every session ends with mobility work because he understands that flexibility and power work together, not against each other. Think about that for a second. Most people only stretch after they get injured. Holland stretches so he doesn't get injured. That's a completely different mindset. It's prevention instead of repair, preparation instead of reaction. The same principle applies outside of football. Most people wait until they're burned out before resting. They wait until they're exhausted before sleeping. They wait until their health begins to decline before exercising. Elite performers don't wait for problems. They build systems that stop the problems from happening in the first place. That's one of the biggest differences between average and exceptional people. Exceptional people don't just solve problems, they prevent them. Out of everything I discovered while researching Holland, this surprised me the most. It wasn't his workouts, it wasn't his diet, it was how seriously he takes sleep. In one interview, Haaland calls sleep the most important thing in the world. Think about that. No training, no football, not nutrition, sleep. That sounds almost unbelievable in a culture that celebrates staying up late and surviving on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. But if your goal is peak performance, sleep isn't wasted time. It's where performance is built. According to the research, Holland typically aims for around 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night and builds his entire evening around improving its quality. Before bed, he reduces exposure to artificial blue light by wearing blue light blocking glasses, helping his body naturally produce melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep. Earlier in the day, he wakes up with natural sunlight, helping regulate his circadian rhythm. Again, none of these habits are impressive on their own. A short walk outside, putting on a pair of glasses, going to bed earlier, they're almost boring. But greatness is often boring. It's built from tiny decisions repeated every single day. There's another habit that often grabs headlines. Holland has spoken about tapping his mouth while sleeping to encourage nasal breathing. Now, this is where it's important to separate curiosity from evidence. Yes, Holland has said he does it, but experts also point out that the scientific evidence supporting mouth tapping for better performance is still limited, and it isn't something everyone should copy without medical advice. And honestly, that's one of the biggest lessons from researching elite performers. People love copying unusual habits, the mouth tape, the cold plunge, the expensive gadgets, because they're interesting, but those aren't the foundation. The foundation is sleeping enough, moving your body consistently, eating quality food, recovering properly, the basics. And Holland has mastered the basics better than almost anyone else. There's one quote that perfectly captures how he thinks. He once said, "I feel tired, but I tell my body I'm not." At first, that sounds like he's simply ignoring fatigue, but that's not what he's saying. He's talking about mental resilience. He's talking about the moments when your brain wants comfort even though your body is still capable. Every one of us has experienced that feeling. The alarm rings, your brain says, "Stay in bed." You're halfway through a workout, your brain says, "That's enough." You're working on something difficult, your brain whispers, "You can always do it tomorrow." The question is, who do you listen to? Because the difference between average and exceptional people isn't that exceptional people never feel tired. It's that they don't automatically obey every feeling they have. They've trained themselves to pause and choose purpose over comfort. That's what makes someone truly built different. By now, you might be thinking, okay, I understand the mindset, I understand the recovery, but surely what makes Holland different is the way he trains. Yes, but probably not in the way you think. Most people imagine elite athletes spending endless hours in the gym, lifting heavier weights every single day. Holland's training is far more intelligent than that. Every exercise has one purpose, to make him a better footballer. He's not trying to become the strongest man in the gym. He's trying to become the most dangerous striker on the pitch. According to reports, his training focuses on three core qualities: speed, power, mobility. His workouts regularly include explosive sprint drills, hill sprints, Olympic-style lifts like cleans and squats, and high-intensity interval training. Every movement is designed to help him accelerate faster, jump higher, and generate more power during matches. What's fascinating is that despite weighing around 94 kilograms, Holland can still reach sprint speeds of around 35 kilometers per hour, making him one of the fastest players in world football. That combination of size and speed is incredibly rare. Most of us spend our lives trying to improve our strengths. Elite performers often spend just as much time improving their weaknesses, because every weakness you eliminate removes another obstacle between you and excellence. There's another interesting detail hidden in the research. Manchester City has reportedly used hypoxic training, where athletes spend short periods in a low oxygen environment to improve recovery and endurance between high-intensity efforts. One of my favorite quotes from Holland isn't about football at all. He said, "Why not optimize some easy small things?" That sentence perfectly explains his philosophy. Notice he didn't say find one life-changing secret. He said small things, because success rarely comes from one massive breakthrough. It comes from hundreds of tiny decisions stacked together. Morning sunlight, better sleep, stretching, whole foods, hydration, recovery, training, reading, experimenting. None of those habits make someone world-class on their own, but together they create a system that's incredibly difficult to beat. Research also shows that Holland enjoys reading about health and experimenting with practical ideas that might improve his performance. Whether it's trying collagen in his coffee or making small adjustments to his routine, his mindset is always the same. Can this help me become just a little bit better? That's a question we should probably ask ourselves more often. Not how do I completely change my life by Monday, but one small improvement I can make today. Because that's how remarkable people think. They're patient enough to let tiny improvements compound. Whenever someone becomes successful, the internet does something predictable. It starts hunting for secrets. What's their morning routine? What supplements do they take? What gadgets do they own? And eventually, people become obsessed with copying the unusual parts. Holland tapes his mouth while sleeping. He drinks raw milk. He owns a cryotherapy chamber. Suddenly, everyone thinks that's the formula, but the research tells a different story. Yes, Holland has spoken publicly about using mouth tape to encourage nasal breathing while he sleeps, but experts also point out that the evidence supporting mouth taping as a performance enhancer is still limited. It shouldn't be treated as a miracle habit. Same goes for raw milk. Although Holland includes it in his routine, many health authorities continue to warn about the potential risk associated with consuming unpasteurized milk. And while ice baths, sauna, and cryotherapy support recovery, but they're not substitutes for the fundamentals. This is where I think many people get distracted. They chase the exciting 1% while ignoring the essential 99%. Sleeping enough, training consistently, eating whole foods, recovering properly, showing up every day, those habits aren't exciting enough to go viral, but they're exciting enough to build greatness. So after researching Erling Haaland, what's the biggest lesson? Is it his genetics? No. Is it his 6,000 calorie diet? Not really. Is it the ice baths, the cryotherapy, the blue light glasses? Again, not exactly. The real lesson is much simpler. Holland has aligned every part of his life towards one objective, becoming better. Most people have goals. Elite performers build systems. There's a huge difference. Goals give you direction. System determine whether you get there. That's why Holland's success isn't built on one extraordinary decision. It's built on thousands of ordinary decisions made consistently. Every morning walk, every healthy meal, every sprint, every stretch, every early night, every recovery session, every choice says the same thing. I'm investing in tomorrow. And maybe that's the most valuable lesson any of us can take from him. What you can copy is the mindset. Sleep a little better, eat a little cleaner, move your body every day. Because that's exactly how Holland became one of the world's best, not through one magical habit, but through hundreds of ordinary habits repeated until they became extraordinary. The truth is, Erling Haaland wasn't built in 90 minutes on a football pitch. He was built in the thousands of invisible moments that nobody ever sees. And maybe that's where greatness is always built, not when the crowd is watching, but when nobody is. So the next time you watch Haaland score another goal, don't just admire the finish, admire the system that made it possible. Because success leaves clues, and the biggest clue Holland gives us is this: the person you become tomorrow is determined by the choices you repeat today.